Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and we're producing this episode for GoodCrowd.info. And we are thrilled today to have with us really, truly one of the greats, one of the heroes in the crowdfunding world is Jenny Kassan. And she is a brilliant lawyer who has mastered really the art and science of crowdfunding investments. And so, Jenny, we're just thrilled to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, you've been doing this stuff, this work, for a long time, long before people were calling this crowdfunding. You were doing it, and you continue to do it mostly the same old way, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the regulations that you use to accomplish investment crowdfunding rather than the sort of more ballyhooed approaches that people are talking about of the Jobs Act and some of the other things that are happening with interest rate crowdfunding elsewhere. What are you using to accomplish this crowdfunding investment model?
Yeah, so I didn't realize it for quite a while after I graduated from law school that there actually are legal ways to raise money from the crowd and offer an investment opportunity. I found out that it's been happening for decades. It's not very well known, but Ben and Jerry's did it when they first started out. They did it in 1984 to open their first production facility. And basically what we do is we identify a federal exemption from the full registration requirements so that you don't have to go ahead and do a full federal registration. You could do that, but that is pretty onerous. So we help people find exemptions, and there's quite a few to choose from depending on the situation. And then what we do is state level compliance. So generally you are going to be doing this in just a few states. To do it nationally can be pretty onerous, although there is a new set of rules that just went into effect that make it easier to do it nationally.
So these new rules, the Reg A Plus as it's being called, seem to be a really tantalizing way to avoid the blue sky filings in all the states if you wanted to do a national campaign.
Yes, it definitely is a great opportunity. I think the only concern with it is that there are a lot of requirements you have to meet to be able to do a Reg A offering. There is what we call a mini registration with the Securities and Exchange Commission. So, and to not have to do all the state level compliance, you do have to have audited financials. So you would probably need to be raising several $1 million to make it worth it, but it is an exciting option. But, you know, so many businesses really are focused within 1 or 2 or 3 states, or even if they are a national or global business, they may have a concentration of fans and supporters in just a few states. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with using the cheaper option and the easier option, which does not require a mini registration with the SEC and just choosing a few states to do your offering in.
So there are no federal exemptions that offer a blue sky exemption apart from the Reg A Plus, which gives you the which requires that mini filing. It is essentially an abbreviated S1, right?
Right. There is actually one other, which is for agricultural co-ops. So if you happen to be an agricultural co-op like Organic Valley,
I've never wanted to be an agricultural co-op until this minute, Jenny, never.
It's a good thing.
Now, does an agricultural co-op have to actually be raising, doing agriculture, or can you set up an ag co-op for a food product, a restaurant, or something else that might have a tether to agriculture?
Yeah, no, it is a pretty strict definition. It's an ag co-op that has the tax benefits under Section 521 of the Internal Revenue Code. So it does have to be a co-op of farmers.
Okay. Well, all the farmers who are watching today, I hope you are paying close attention, and I hope you'll be sure to write down Jenny's URL at the end when we're done with this conversation, because this will be especially relevant to you. But have you done anything under the new Reg A Plus rules as they've come into being? I know it's just a matter of weeks. I think 3 weeks they've been effective, but have you started working on any?
Not yet, but I would really love to do that. It is a really exciting possibility, but nothing's come in yet.
Now, on the other hand, let's go through some of the exemptions. One of the exemptions that seems to play a role here would be a 504 exemption. Under a 504 ruling, you can raise, I think it's just up to $1 million, but the SEC trades pretty lightly on you in terms of what you're required to feed them and meet requirements there. Isn't that right?
Yes, Rule 504 is a nice one. You can raise up to $1 million in any 1-year period. And there is a very simple filing with the SEC. It's just a Form D. And then you just have to do state level compliance. And an interesting thing about that one is you could do private offerings in some states and public offerings in others. So you could say, I'm going to do a public offering in California, but while I'm waiting for that regulatory process to get complete, I'm going to call my friends in these 5 other states and invite them to invest. So, or you could do public registrations in more than 1 state. So there's a lot of flexibility with that one. That allows you to go to multiple states.
Now, under a 504 offering, there are all kinds of issues that come up, but it seems to me if you're going to do a public offering in one place and a private offering in another, that in today's modern world, the offering is effectively public universally. How do you manage the regulatory risk and compliance when you are doing a public offering, just for sake of discussion, say in California, you're doing a private offering in Nevada?
Right. Yeah, that's definitely something you have to be careful about. Probably the best thing to do would just to go ahead and do the private offerings before you start the public offering, so you can make sure that the people you talk to privately haven't seen public advertising. But I actually did it when I raised money myself for my own business. I had been doing public advertising in California, and I went to a conference in another state, and I ran into someone I knew who lived in another state, and he had not seen any of the public advertising I had done, and I believed him when he told me that. So I felt comfortable, making a private offering to him. To be on the safe side, I might want him to sign something saying I didn't see any public advertising before investing, but it does happen. People are so busy, they don't always see all your stuff.
Sure. No one knows that better than Procter and Gamble. So you focus principally, not exclusively, on social enterprises. What brought you to focus on social enterprises?
Well, my first job out of law school was at a nonprofit organization that was very entrepreneurial. So we did a lot of, we started businesses, we did, all kinds of things to do job creation. We worked with existing small businesses in the community where the nonprofit was located. So I just got really passionate about the idea that business can be such an important force for change. So I just love working with entrepreneurs that care about not just making as much money as possible, but also doing something really good in the world with their business.
Well, that's what I love. And so that's why I was so excited to talk to you. It's interesting. I talk to people all the time who know you. And have worked with you and talked to you about your work. It's really kind of a fun validation of the quality of work you're doing and the expertise that you have that I keep running across people who know you and know of you and think highly of you. So it's great to talk again. So Jenny, let's see if we can't come up with just a little bit of a case study example. I'm going to try and do something that would be common. Let's take California as a case study. Let's say we've got a social entrepreneur in California. The great thing about California is you could do a single state offering more easily there than probably any other state in the country for a variety of reasons. So let's assume that we're going to do just an offering in California, but we want to do it publicly. How would you choose an exemption? What might fit best, and what would we do?
Yeah, so I would probably do from one of three exemptions. I'm hearing a bit of an echo, but I'll keep going. So if the business is located in California and formed under, formed under California law, and their business is pretty focused within California, it could use the intrastate exemption, which means there's no federal filing at all and no cap. So I've had quite a few clients that have raised more than $1 million using the intrastate exemption. Then, of course, Rule 504, as we talked about, if they're maybe formed under the laws of a different state, or they are located, maybe they have a lot of operations in multiple states, they may not be eligible for the intrastate exemption, then we would look at 504. Also, I've had a lot of nonprofit clients that are raising money from investors, and there is a federal nonprofit exemption. So again, with that, you could raise money from multiple states, there's no cap, and there's no federal filing. So those would be the three main ones I would look at. And then, of course, if they're raising more, a larger amount where they can afford the effort of going to the mini registration process, we would look at Reg A plus.
Yeah. Right. So let's talk a little bit more about the California exemption. Tell us about the rules that govern that.
Right. So in California, there would not be an exemption. You'd have to do a full registration. But it's not that difficult. It's much easier to do a state level registration than a federal registration. So California is one of the states that might be a little bit more challenging than others because they're a little bit understaffed, and they are pretty strict with the scrutiny that they apply for registrations. But I have done many of them in California, and it usually takes maybe 3 to 5 months to get through the process with the state. And what generally happens is you prepare your offering materials, which is mostly a prospectus that describes what it is that you're offering and talks about your business and the risks involved in investing. And you submit that to the state, and then the state usually will come back with a bunch of questions and comments, and then you just kind of go back and forth a few times until they're happy with it. And then they issue you a permit, and then you can go ahead and do your public offering in California. And you can include both accredited and unaccredited investors.
No limits on non-accredited investors then under that scenario.
That's right. Although in California, unlike any other state I've ever dealt with, they will often put a cap not on unaccredited investors, but on people that don't meet a certain minimum level of wealth or income. And that level of wealth and income is much lower than the accredited requirements, but they will, say that you shouldn't invest. Usually you shouldn't invest more than $2,500 unless you meet certain minimum wealth or income requirements. But you can still bring in an unlimited number of people at that $2,500 level.
I see. Well, it seems to make good sense. People who have very limited incomes and net worth probably shouldn't be investing more than $2,500.
Right.
That doesn't seem to be much of a problem. Who's having the most success among the clients you've worked with, and I don't mean names, although we're all curious. I'm more interested in substantively, what are the sorts of clients? What do they have in common that tends to help them be successful?
Yeah, well, they've all been social enterprises, which I think makes a huge difference. I think people are very excited about supporting businesses that aren't just providing a good financial return to their investors, but are also doing something good in the world. Of course, if they can provide a better financial return, that always makes it even more attractive. Although my clients to date have all been offering what some would consider relatively low returns, usually in the range of 2 to 4% per year. And yet they have all reached their goals so far. They've raised usually in the range of between 200,000 and a few million. What else do they have in common? Ideally they have a community of people that either knows about them or is a constituency that would be interested in what they're doing. So for example, maybe you're a clean tech business and there's lots of environmentalists in California that might want to invest in a clean tech business. So you may not already have a relationship with them, but it's a natural constituency that's going to be interested. So I would say, having a natural constituency, having a great story to tell about how your business is not only going to provide a reasonable financial return, but is also doing something good in the world.
Fantastic. Well, listen, you have become, as I mentioned, someone that people really look up to. You're recognized as an expert. People are excited about what you're doing. You're really a role model. Who in turn do you look to as a role model?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people. I think what gets me the most excited is when I talk to entrepreneurs that are doing things in a really great way. You hear a lot of horror stories about social enterprises that raise money and then the investors require them to, basically sell out their values to some extent or completely. And there's just so many stories of businesses that started out doing amazing things in the world and then really either completely lost their mission or it got very diluted. So when I meet entrepreneurs that from the very beginning, before they even start raising money, are totally committed to not letting that happen, and the way they raise their money is completely reflective of that, and they won't take money from the first person who offers it. They're incredibly picky about who they'll take it from, even though that can be challenging because it can feel like it's, oh my gosh, it's so hard to raise money. I've got to take it from the first person who offers it. But I so admire those entrepreneurs I've met that worked really hard to find the right investors. I wrote a blog post recently about a woman I heard present, and she said she spoke to hundreds of investors before bringing on ones that she felt really good about. And I really admire that. And I think that's something that we should all really aspire to, is putting more time and energy into the process of raising money so that we can stay true to our goals and our mission for the long term.
That's wonderful. Now, you could be doing anything. You're a brilliant lawyer. You could be on Wall Street making $7 million a year or more. Who knows? Why do you do this?
It's just so much fun. And, I know that when I got out of law school, a lot of my classmates went to work at big corporate law firms for huge amounts of money, but a lot of them are very unhappy. And, you hear a lot of stories about lawyers just being miserable. So it's more important to me to have fun and work with people I love, and also feel like I'm part of a movement to create a new economy that works for everybody and not just enriches the richest.
Yeah, well, I hear that. Well, Jenny, you have been successful, really very successful. And I wonder if you would just give us one example of something you do every day that you think helps you be successful, that we could do, that we could emulate.
Yes, I think the thing that I've done that has made the biggest difference for me is being part of a community that's very supportive that I can turn to. I actually joined a group of entrepreneurs that all work together supporting each other. And I am constantly in touch with members of that group, asking for support, asking for advice and feedback. And that has just made such a huge difference for me. And I think entrepreneurs often, and I did this myself for a long time, we tend to go it alone, suffer in silence, feel like we can't really reach out for support and show vulnerability. So I think it's just so important to find a group of people that you really trust, where you can, talk about both the highs and the lows, and give as well as get support.
That is a great suggestion. I'm really grateful that you would share that. Now, Jenny, before you go, please tell us how the people who are watching today, how they can get in touch with you, learn more about what you're doing.
Yeah, so probably the best thing is to go to my website, JennyKassan.com, and there's a contact page there. And I actually do offer talk to people about their capital raising strategy. There's actually an application form you can get to from that page on my website to see if it's a good fit. And if it is, I'm really happy to talk to you about what's happening with your capital raising strategy and what might be the best next step for making that more successful.
Fantastic. Jenny, thank you so much for being with us today. We wish you every success in the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Same to you. I love what you do so much.
Thank you. Let's do some good.